Right. Hello. Welcome back to Supernova Labs. Um, just got out of a meeting with the UK Space Agency Accelerator. Conversations about the business and where it's going and what exactly I'm trying to do, and getting me to think about like customers and how to get this whole thing started from the bottom up. So yeah, I wanted to record a video because it just got me thinking about, well, just expanding out the vision for what Supernova Labs and the Open Spaceplane project are trying to do. Because for all intents and purposes, we're just trying to get people to space. I want to go to space. I think there's a bunch of people probably watching this that want to go to space, and the means to get there just don't exist right now for most people. Like, I tried to get in through the astronaut corps, with ESA, through the Air Force, as a fast jet pilot, and there just aren't really any routes for me. So I just got to build it myself. But I think a lot of the problem that I've had with Supernova Labs and like trying to like position this, like, it's just so big and it's so like out there, like it's space. Who wants to go to space? And we're just down here, like we're just in the dirt, just like we just want to get on with our lives, we want to go to our jobs, drive our cars, do X, Y, and Z. Like, we're not in that future yet, and that's been like 90% of the issue that we found, is that we're almost having to develop the market to sell into, right? Because like, how you can't sell space planes to people that don't want them. You gotta make people want them, and how do you make people want them? It's by making space fucking cool, because it's fucking cool. But it's being cool isn't just about like saying like, oh yeah, like build some space planes, like go to space, float around. It's a vibe, and you got to build a vibe. And how do you build a vibe? Right, it's that you need to get to a point where space is just so endemic in society that people don't even think about it as space. It's like, it's just fashion, right? It's just fashionable to wear space technical fabrics. It's just fashionable to wear like space helmets and have like augmented reality displays in a helmet that people just wear around in the street. It's the same problem that VR has right now with all their headsets, right? You go on a plane and nobody is wearing a VR headset, despite it being like, oh, this is actually a great thing for it. Like, there's still like social stigma about wearing these headsets outdoors, and like they're not really designed for like everyday use, like outdoors and like in your day-to-day life, other than maybe Facebook's what do you call it, those glasses. They're probably the clearest towards those ends. But yeah, like, you need to build a market. And why we want to get to a point where we're building space suits and building space planes and make it as ubiquitous as, like, instead of like buying your kid the first car, it's buying your kid the first spacecraft, right? That's the future that I want to get into, at least. I don't know, I feel like I can't be alone in that. But yeah, it's like, how do you get there? Especially when like most people, they just don't think about it day to day. Like, it's like the same problem the VR headsets had. Like, people don't care about the technology. They don't care. Like nobody cares about the size, the shape, the weight, the specifications of this, except for people that are like power users or people that are genuinely interested in tech. What they care about is what this can show you, right? And the experiences you can get. Like people want to, I don't know, rock climb on the moon or like go golfing on the moon. I feel like that people think that's a romantic thing, but the amount of distance you have to walk to your golf balls will be enormous. Don't know how you're going to track them either. That's what trackers in the balls. But yeah, like how do you position like orbital hotels and orbital casinos and those kind of experiences of like luxury leisure, like fun, frivolity? Because they're the things that are going to drive the market for the means to get there. The means to get there should be pedestrian, right? It's like people don't romanticize buses. I mean, we do in Manchester because we just got control of the buses again. But most of the time, people don't romanticize buses. They don't romanticize trains. It's just a means of getting from A to B. So that's kind of the route like we're trying to navigate at the minute. It's like how do you like get the lay of the land and like tack left and right and get along this valley to get to these peaks. So I've been designing a little engine. I know you may have seen it before in one of my presentations, but there's a little tiny one right there. It's like my version of a rotating destination engine. Little aerospike on it as well. Sell to CubeSat operators because it's one thing having the vision, the direction, where we're going and what we're doing, and we're going to make the world a brilliant place. We're going to have loads of money. We're going to be dancing around in space. But we don't live in that world right now. And you need to ground it to reality. So what is happening at the minute? Well, what's going on in space for those that don't know? You've got rocket companies, right? Everybody knows the rocket companies. You've got SpaceX, you've got Rocket Lab, you've got a whole load of small sat launchers. For human space flight, Virgin Galactic, but they're not really going to space, but it's a whole different story. So where's our best position, right? Where's the money going in? There's a lot of CubeSats right now, so a lot of satellites nowadays aren't much bigger than a shoebox. I mean, there's probably a load that are actually this size. So people think of these satellites like these bus-sized satellites that they were putting up in the 80s and 90s, like communications satellites that were basically massive mini computers on orbit. And yeah, the reality is, I mean, there have been projects where people have literally just stuck a smartphone in a box and sent it up there, and it operated for a period of time. There's an issue with like radiation up there, so you typically need like gold coatings on components to stop them like getting radiation damage. But there's loads of those. There's millions going into developing these like really tiny satellites that can just do like tiny little box cameras, like Planet. And they need to get around. So typically they've got cold gas thrusters on them, so little microfluidic valves that kind of just to keep it oriented in the right position. So that's a really good market, right? There's people that build those components, and having a little tiny aerospike that's tuned for all orbital planes, and that might be a really good position to start from, because I mean, and yeah, you can print these super easily. I mean, yeah, you have to print them in like aerospace grade metals, which is kind of like 100x is the price, but it becomes something you can position as a product, right? But where does that get you? I mean, you print engines, but you're still just putting more engines into the market. You can test the profiles. You can test it works on these small satellites, and get a healthy wedge from just building these little tiny engines, and that's our lane. We can stick in that. But 20 years down the line, I mean, we'd still be doing the same thing. So it's like, how do you strap metaphorical rocket boosters on this to drive it forwards even further? And it takes going back to the development of the car, right? So I mean, you look at cars when they first came out, they were basically just wagons with an engine in front of them, and it took like people racing them and building competitions like GTs and Formula Ones and I don't know, Le Mans and the circuits and all this kind of thing, to really get people thinking about, well, yeah, how do I make this faster? How do I make this? How do I get that extra second? How do I use better materials? How do I change the processes that we're manufacturing this by so we can do it faster and cheaper? And that gets filtered back into the development of the commercial cars that are being built. So you get this feedback loop of like new innovations, we can go faster. The customers, they want this. They want to, well, it might not go faster, but they can get places more efficiently. And the cars cost less because it's costing less in terms of materials. And then you get that feedback loop again. And again, and again, and again, and you get rolling to the point where you have these like hypercars that are just the absolute plenum of engineering, and they have to integrate the best of technologies. They have to integrate the best of processes into what they're doing because they're playing for milliseconds. So how do you apply that to rockets? How do you apply this to engines? How do you apply it to space planes? There's some evidence that this is gonna come to pass, right? And it's like, you know, when you're surfing, you sat on the water. Most of the time, you're just waiting. Because you're watching the waves, like it's like, oh, okay, there's like one coming. Oh, start paddling. It's not breaking. Okay, so get back in position and try again. And you see these waves breaking further, like to your left, to your right, and there's like good breaks, and just like people managing to catch the surf and able to move in the right direction. You're waiting for the time to like hit your wave and catch it, pop up. And I can see the drone racing leagues and Airspeeder and what they're developing, and they're trying to develop like a Formula One for racing drones where you put a pilot in there. Would you believe? Eventually, this was always going to happen. So how do you do collision avoidance? How do you develop the hardware and the software so it's like a flyable thing that it's all fly-by-wire, but there's still input control and it's kind of smoothed out, which is all stuff we would need further down the line. So in a way, it's already started. These leagues for racing aircraft and, well, ultimately will reach the routes of spacecraft already exist. You've got the Reno Air races, you've got Airspeeder now trying to build like racing drone, racing car, I guess. Racing airspeeders, I guess, probably the best way to describe it actually. Got those kind of leagues. You've got the drone racing leagues where they're testing AI at like a much smaller scale and like whether like humans can beat AI. So I can see all these waves breaking left and right. And so it's like, how do you position something like a little rocket engine, developing that with students? Like, it's a formula student thing. It's like one of the best ways to learn engineering is just to get your hands dirty and start building. Cut metal, right? And these students are building little tiny Formula One cars, racing around like go-karts, little Yamaha motorbike engines on the back of them. Yeah, how do you get that for rocket engines? There is a project called Road to Space in the UK where they're doing this now, so they're testing rocket engines. And I think Bath have developed an aerospike for this, which is phenomenal. You need to get in touch with them. If one of you are seeing this, please get in touch. But you need to make it a spectator sport. You need to get it to the point where it's like Formula One, where there's like traveling road shows that are going to like major capital cities all around the world, and there's a spectacle to the whole thing. Because like seeing rockets going off, yeah, I mean that's cool for the people that like rockets, and like it's like a static thing. Like it's always fun to see, but like it's not going anywhere. Like it's not actually moving anywhere. The drone racing league, I think, is like niche sport, more like on the esports side. So like younger generations, like probably do it in a stadium. Very very cool, a lot easier to like move around. Airspeed are not at the point, not at a level of development yet that they're running events. So yeah, still a lot of room for developing like the spectacle, the roadshow, the like getting on the TV cable networks and making sure people see it, like the Netflix Drive to Survive kind of docu-series as marketing for it. None of that exists yet. Sorry, I've been going on about this for a long time now. But yeah, all of that necessary to build culture and to get it into the public consciousness that yeah, I could go to space. Yeah, I mean, yeah, why not? Like, why don't I buy the jerseys that these guys are using to race, the Earth suits that these guys are wearing, the helmets that they're using to do the heads-up display while they're flying around? Why don't we put public policy in place so we can have flight lanes along cities where these can come in and go out again? There's just so much infrastructure that needs to be in place for this to happen. And I'm not unaware of that. So what we can do, right, other than like building engines and getting started with that, is like being that bastion for the future and driving it from wherever people see us, whether we're behind or in front or in the middle somewhere. I don't know. Like I think people make their own will make their own resolution on that. That's all we can do. That's all we can do. It's just like keep pressing the vision and like this is where we need to go, and like just developing the technology and developing the manufacturing capabilities. It's like pots of money like just popping out of nowhere, and it's like yeah, like it's for all of the vision and for all of the spectacle, the culture. It's like it drives economic growth. You don't drive economic growth through staying the same, staying stagnant, staying just like maintaining wealth, which is just what everything is set up for right now. It's just all like services for maintaining wealth. It's all like banking systems for maintaining wealth. It's high net worth like experiences and all this kind of thing, and it's not. And then the means of extraction on the other side, right? It's not healthy. Ultimately, economies are built from the bottom up. Startups and sole traders are the people that build countries, nations, economies and civilizations. So how do you enable them and like give them the means to like buy into a vision and like be like, yes, I see my part in this. And there's like very clear cuts I can take off this beast. It's like, I'm gonna take my piece. Get that cheddar. Oh, bloody hell. Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of where my thinking was when I was speaking to the accelerator. I don't know if I've ever spoken about this. I've spoken about the space industry and like where I'll go and all this kind of thing, but hopefully this gives people a better idea of how to get there. And I've not just been waffling on for the past God knows how long. But yeah. No, I mean, I think people think that like 90% of it is doing the work and to get to that point, and to a degree it is. But the most important 10% is people just gotta believe that it's possible. Because if they don't, like, if people believe something is possible, it just goes so much further to just like entraining. It's like, you know, when you like have a piece of fabric, right, and you kind of like make a little pinch in the fabric, and then kind of the rest of the fabric just starts coming up with it. Yeah, just trying to get that hold in the public psyche. It's like, this is where we could go. Only way is up. Yeah, cool. Okay, that was pretty cringe. But I hope you have a wonderful day. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your week. I think it's the weekend in a couple of days. I hope you've got something nice planned. Probably see you tomorrow.